So much for checking out the Sportsline Podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neill. As we like to say in these parts, if you can make it in Hamilton, Halton, Niagara, you can make it anywhere. And it is those teams, athletes, executives, and broadcasters who we love to spotlight on the Sportsline Podcast. Today, it's a club that has been representing for a real long time. For 70 years, the Hornets Rugby Club have been representing the greater Hamilton region with success on and off the pitch. The mission of the club to promote an enriching environment where the sport of rugby can be played and the culture can be enjoyed by all ages and backgrounds, regardless of gender or ability. Through active volunteerism and membership participation within the club, the big winners are the community. So we bring in the top dog, Will Redgate, as the president. Now, of course, you'd like to dabble with still being on the pitch as well, too. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having us.
I'll tell you, so rugby, I mean, I think we look at the sport of rugby, and I think it came from Rugby England somewhere, and it eventually made its way to Canada. There's so much history in this sport, and again, your club, 70 years. It's an amazing accomplishment.
It really is, yeah. Rugby does originate from its English roots, and it has gone out to a lot of the Commonwealth countries. Rugby's been in Canada for well over a century, but it's been in Hamilton since 1954 for the last 70 years. And the club's obviously gone through some up and downs, but we're still here, we're still standing, we're still fighting.
And that's the incredible thing, that there's so much love and passion for this sport that even in the down times, and I think every sport has it, especially on a local level, that it continues, and that the club fosters itself, whether it's men, women, kids, and that's what you guys do. Again, getting to the sport though, your league, I mean, obviously your club, who do you guys play?
So our senior men and women's teams both play in the Niagara Rugby Union Loop. So we are in the second tier league in Rugby, Ontario. So we play Niagara, Burlington, as far as London, Sarnia, Windsor, but a lot of Southern Ontario teams. And then all of our minis and juniors play in the Southern Ontario Loops within Rugby, Ontario.
Now, obviously, you've been an active player for some time. What made you want to become the leader of this long-standing program?
Well, yeah, I started playing for the club when I was 16 years old. I've been there a little over a decade now, and it was just one of those things that fell into my lap. I never anticipated taking over as president this early. One of those things I saw as a pipe dream, but the way, timing is everything in life. So the job opened up. We needed someone to take charge, and I was just happy to keep the club moving forward.
Now, in addition to playing for the club, previously your university roots were right here local with McMaster University, and you were really successful as well.
That's right, yeah. I started playing rugby actually at Sherwood High School as well. I captained the team there for a couple of years, kept them running, kept them afloat for a little bit. Transitioned playing for the Hornets for a couple of years. I played at McMaster for 4 years, as you mentioned, before going to school in Ottawa. So yeah, I've been playing rugby for about 11 or 12 years now, and a lot of those years have been in Hamilton.
And there is a bronze medal somewhere in that Marauders gymnasium of successful and all the trophies that they've won for all the many sports, and you were part of a team that did something that was its first.
Yeah, so when I was in my fourth year at McMaster, the men's university rugby championship started. It was the first one ever. There was always a national championship for the women, given that they were the partner sport with the men's football, where men's rugby didn't really have that partner sport, so we never had a nationals. So it started up when I was in my fourth year, luckily enough. Again, timing's everything in life. And we were lucky enough to be the second team to represent Ontario, and we met Guelph in the final. We took Guelph down on their home pitch, and we got the national bronze my last year at Mac.
Can I go back to the high school stuff there? I mean, I didn't even know, even at your age, that there was a high school loop as well, too. What's the beginnings there? Because I guess it kind of starts at that level and continues to grow on at that level, and then getting to OUA and obviously playing for a big-time club like Hamilton Hornets.
Absolutely, and I'll answer your questions in reverse order, because high school rugby is one of our main focuses, because high school rugby doesn't really exist right now. There's not too many programs. There's only a couple schools that really have kept it together, and COVID's a large result of that. But that's one of our main focuses at the club, is trying to get rugby into youth's hands, get them exposed to it, because rugby's a great sport. We all love it. We're all here to play and have fun, and it's a great opportunity for young girls who don't have any other alternatives for contact sports. So yeah, back when I was in high school, about a decade or a little over a decade ago, high school rugby was huge. There was, I think, 7 or 8 schools in the public board in Hamilton. There was 7 or 8 in the Catholic board, men's or boys and girls, I guess, at that age. And we ran, a full league. We ran 7 tournaments. The Hornets actually ran 7 tournaments back then. At the end of the year, it's kind of a conclusion to the high school loop. And again, rugby slowly teetered over time in high schools, but it was massive when I was a kid. And that's where a lot of, when I started playing rugby, that's where a lot of the roots of our club came from, as a lot of high school rugby, because that's where you pick it up. It's where a lot of kids pick up a lot of their sports. So that was a lot of the foundation of our club. And I think, at least Amy here that you'll meet in a few minutes, she played high school rugby as well, and all the way through the Hornets. So yeah, high schools are vitally important, and we're looking to get back there.
Okay, so this is what's interesting to me, is the fact that when you were 15, 16 years old, you want to play for the football team, you want to play for the basketball team, maybe even the hockey team as well too. We're Canadian. But why rugby? Why was that your choice?
Honestly, coincidentally enough, it was just I tried it out, and I didn't make the football team. I went out in grade 10. I didn't make it. I got cut. I wasn't, I didn't know much about football, but my dad played, so I went out and tried for him. And sitting in the parking lot was one of the Hornets old boys, and he was pulling every kid that got cut and said, "Come try rugby. Come try out for us. Come try out our sport." And like a lot of 15, 16-year-olds, even now, I had no idea what rugby was. One of my longtime friends played for the team, so I'd asked him a little bit about it. Went out the next day. We went right into our first contact session, and I fell in love from there, and here we are.
There you go, and you lead right into it, because I think to the person that is untrained, unfamiliar with the sport, they look at it and they see a certain toughness, bravado, aggressiveness with the sport of football. And then you watch something like rugby and you're like, oh my God, right? Again, Can you talk to me about the contact of the sport and how you safeguard yourself from injury?
Yeah, so rugby obviously has a little bit of a connotation, because and it comes from parents, administrators, and they see the lack of equipment, the lack of padding, because you obviously only play rugby with cleats and a mouth guard. They see that, and they get their guards up. They're worried about injury. They're worried about all that contact, because there is just as much as football, if not more, in different capacities, in different elements, but it's just as physical as American football. But the thing with rugby is, we are trained from day one, from that first session, obviously to protect your head, but to learn how to tackle properly. We see a lot of American football players. They're getting a little bit better now, just given the injury and stigma around the sport in general, around contact sport in general. But we were taught that right from day one, is where to put your head, where to put your shoulder, where to put your hips, how to fall properly. And believe me, when I was 15 years old, coming from football practice where they were running plays and this and that and tryouts, and I was learning how to fall on day one, I thought that was a little bit silly. But looking back, it made the most sense in the world, because everything in rugby is about safety. Everything's about teaching you how to get into these contact situations as safely as possible, and ultimately that's why rugby is one of the, if not the safest contact sport out there. There's been studies, obviously it's huge in England, a lot of studies overseas, but rugby is continually much safer for catastrophic injuries, much safer for minor injuries than any other contact sport.
I've seen those studies. There's more injuries in soccer than there is in rugby, which is amazing to me, and a credit to the athletes, and that they're all kind of taking care of each other as well too. Again, dealing with the sport, what I like about it too, and not a lot of sports can brag about this too, you can have men or women as big as this, and then big women or men as big as this. Like there's some different positions that size can fit you to be on that team.
Absolutely, and that's the age-old adage about rugby, is any shape and size, we will find a place for you. It's there's a lot of specialized positions in rugby. There's a lot of different skill sets, but there's a place for everyone. If you're a bigger, stronger individual, then you're going to the forwards, you're going to the pack. You're maybe a front row, maybe a second row. If you're a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker, then you're going to the backs. You're going to be like me, and not that I'm as small and quick anymore, but you're going to the backs with me. You're going to be running around. You're going to be doing a lot of the passing, a lot of the decision making. making, but at the end of the day, yeah, there's a spot for everyone on a rugby team, and that's what, again, from high school all the way up to senior, all the way up to wherever, we push that. And no matter what your skill set, no matter what your experience, no matter size, background, anything, we have a spot for you.
For someone like yourself that played the game at the highest level, was there ever thought to go pro?
Well, I certainly didn't play the game at the highest level, and coincidentally enough, again, timing, that first university nationals was the kind of inaugural season, or in and around the inauguration of the Toronto Arrows, which was the professional men's team that ran out of Ontario, out of Toronto, obviously, for about 5 or 7 years, and they scouted a whole bunch of players at that tournament. Obviously, I wasn't at that level, and admittedly, I was nowhere close to that pro level. They did scout a couple of players on my team. I played with a couple of fantastic rugby players that still play professional rugby now down in the States. And yeah, pro rugby is that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other podcast, right? Because it's a tough game to professionalize in North America, where rugby is still not necessarily a mainstream sport.
Yeah, it's gaining traction though. I think when they started the Arrows, there was a certain amount of attention, but I think it kind of got lost when playing a lot of games in the United States, and playing. I think because of the season of the league, at least the way I understand it, is that Toronto were playing a huge amount of games, home games, and then they were away for a long time, right? And I thought that was an issue with the sport that maybe they need to work on, because I think people want to go out there and watch high level rugby.
Absolutely, yeah. Then there's certainly a market for it. Part of the issue with that and the season and scheduling is obviously the weather and the climate. Is they spent the first 6 or 12 weeks of the season away because they were playing in the southern United States, where you don't have snow, where you can't really play with snow in Canada, and that's an issue that all rugby clubs and teams, no matter grassroots all the way up to pro, they run into. Is we can't really do much outdoors from about the end of November till about April. So that was part of the issue with the pro rugby. The main issue that I found with the Arrows is the unfortunate and untimely passing of the owner, Bill Webb, and the Hornets obviously wish him all the rest in peace, and to him and his family. But the Arrows lost a great man there that really kept them going, really kept them fighting. And the Arrows will be back. Our club has been in conversations with the Arrows, and the Arrows have been in conversations with Rugby Ontario.
That's great.
All avenues. So I do believe that there will be pro rugby again. What that'll look like is still to be determined. But again, they Arrows have, or whatever that pro rugby looks like, have the Hornet support. Yeah,
there's a guy by the name of Brendan Black, who I'm sure you're probably familiar with, and kind of seeing the way he kind of progressed, and I think he's playing at Guelph, and I think he's playing in New Zealand right now, and played with the Arrows as well too. Young guy that just has all kinds of potential, and obviously that national team, I think you're getting some strides there too, and playing some of those big nations, women and men, and knocking them off at the World Cup and that kind of stuff. So I think there's certainly room for more growth, obviously, in the sport, but it's good to see that there are things happening. And I think it's because of clubs like yours, 70 years, right, that will keep this going.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you mentioned that, I would be absolutely remiss if I don't mention our Canadian women's national team, who just took down New Zealand, just rose to number 2 in the world. They got back there after the 2014 World Cup. It's the highest they've been since that time, and that's fantastic. Our women in Canada at the highest level of Canadian rugby, our women are dwarfing our men at the moment. We have so many women playing pro overseas in the English leagues and the French leagues. Our women professionally are doing amazing. They're doing fantastic things for the sport, and obviously we're just trying to, as our club, obviously we've been around for quite a bit. We've certainly sent a few players here and there to the national teams or national programs, and again we're just trying to do our best to support those women, support those men, and just support the high level as best we can.
Well, you have a kind of broadcast ability of you. You just kind of lead it in nicely. We talk about the fact that we got the growth of the women and men's program. So let's bring in Amy McNutt, who is someone that you know all too much. Let's bring in her. Come on in. I love it. Senior, playing with the senior team. I've been alumni at this point.
Yeah, retired.
I mean, you're retired, right? Why'd you retire, for crying out loud?
As safe as rugby is, my body just didn't have it in me anymore.
Right.
18 years is a long time to be playing a contact sport, especially in the forwards where it's a little bit more grind and pound. But yeah, I'm still involved. I'm still coaching. I'm still there as much as I can be.
Well, let's go back to you said 18 years ago.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
okay, and please take this the right way, because I think it's just a basic question.
Yeah.
You know, again, we associate rugby as this macho sport.
I'm pretty
right?
macho.
Okay, but, you know, people would sit there and say, you know, well, that's not a sport for a woman.
Right.
I'm sure these are things that you've gone through in early part of your career.
The thing about femininity is, and the thing about being a woman is like, there's not just one way to do it. So for me, I've always been like a rough and tumble, like boys can do it, why can't I do it? And the biggest draw for me with rugby was always is the laws are the exact same for men and women. Whereas you get hockey, like I grew up playing hockey and I spent half my time in the box for either checking or fighting, and boys, that's allowed, but I'm a woman and I'm playing other women, why can't I do that? Rugby, I have the exact same capability as you, physicality. I'm playing against other people my size, bigger and smaller. Why can't I have the exact same rules? And in rugby, you do. So it's beautiful in that way. It's an equalizer.
And because I'm going to call you one of the, not the pioneers, but you know, sort of the early part of the growth of this sport, especially your club at the women's level, and to see what it's blossoming into, it's got to be a proud thing for you.
I was the longest standing women's player on our women's team up until recently. I'm everything that I am today as an athlete, as a woman, because of the women that came before me. A lot of those women are still around. They come around, they come to support us at our games, come support their kids, their grandkids playing now. That's the biggest part of the community. And as an athlete is that this isn't just rugby and I go home, I'm done after. It's I get to honor the sport, I get to honor the people, and they're there honoring me, and we're there as a family.
You get the support from the guys' team side to side as well?
Absolutely. We're all there for each other.
Yeah. And that's part of the club aspect.
Absolutely.
Is it that you, I think, is a beautiful part about it. And one of the things I kind of want to get into is that I've noticed this with rugby, because I know a couple of people that played with Centaurs and the Crusaders, I guess, in Oakville. But it's not just a club. Like it's a building that's a club, and they do things together. And there's activities and dances and barbecues, and that just goes to the family part of the sport, does it not?
Absolutely, and bringing the family part back into it, I'd be remiss to use Will's big word. I was brought into the sport by my dad, who was a member of the club before I was born.
So when did he start?
Oof, that's a rough question. I'm going to say late 70s into the early 80s.
Wow.
He played. Again, yeah, so some of the men that are still around that were his coaches are still around and whatnot. My father unfortunately passed, but he got me signed up for the club when I was like, Dad, I want to play a contact sport. How about football? He was like, absolutely not. Like, I know what happens in those change rooms with boys. We're not doing that. He's like, we're signing up for rugby. Next week later, I was at a Hornets practice, and I never looked back.
He must have been so proud.
Honestly, like he drove me to every practice, every game out of town. He'd break it down with me on the way home. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is what you did. This is what you could have done. You did this well. It was just the absolute best. And bringing that family, like my own family, to my Hornets family, like it's one for me. Like it's just one big, that's it.
And we've gone full circle in a sense that you are now working with, developing, coaching the kids programs as well too.
I started coaching minis flag rugby when I was out from a surgery, and I never looked back. It is the most joyous. You get to bring the game to these kids that have never heard about it, but you just want to make them feel the love of the game that you have, and it's all camaraderie. Just the love of the game, building friendships and partnerships, and then the foundations of rugby as well. Like the biggest thing is that we're trying to create members of the community that want to stick around with us and that do bigger things for the Hamilton area.
Right. So. And can you explain? I mean, I think it's kind of basic probably, but I'm going to ask a basic question here. Flag rugby?
So the kids that I coach, I'm a U10 coach right now, so they're getting ready to play contact in the next year or so. Instead of making a tackle, flag.
Right.
Okay. There's no scrumming. There's no lineouts. If the ball goes out of bounds, we turn it over and the kids pass it in from there, kind of like soccer, but just underhand. And they're just learning the basics of like, we run forward, but we pass backwards. If the ball comes off your hand, the other team gets it. Like just small stuff like that. And really just building the sportsmanship, though, is the biggest thing, and the respect that you have for your opposition.
That's a good thing to start with.
Absolutely.
I mean, it must be kind of cute to watch. I know when you watch some of these like 8-year-old kids playing soccer, and it's like 22 people here, 22 kids there.
We're really trying to break that habit of the Timbit soccer. We're really trying to break that, because the biggest part of rugby is using that nice big field, and you see people get down those sidelines. And the best part of being a coach is seeing a kid finally be like, oh, like this is what you mean when you say this, and it clicks, and they start doing a dummy pass and go doing a show and go. Just seeing that 9-year-old just fully get it. There's nothing that makes me more proud as a coach. Like, it's absolutely the best.
Are we getting some girls playing as well?
Absolutely, we're getting some girls playing, and they're honestly, some of them, like they listen a little better. So, and they're absolutely phenomenal athletes as well, and they're just so proud to be able to, like, you see me catch that boy? I'm like, yeah, you did. Like, it's the best.
I think that's fabulous. I mean, to be able to give back for yourself, you have this, 2-decade-long career, you're still involved, all the things that you learned, you get to spread to the youth, and that is such an important part, I think, for you as a president as well, too, that you are able to find players within the club that are willing to not just say, I'm done with the sport, but I can give back as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Our club is nothing without all of our volunteers, all of our alumni members who give up so many hours, so many days, so many nights to keep our club afloat. We're not the biggest club out there. You talk about the Centaurs. We don't have our our 500 or 600 members, but you know what? Our 200 or 250 members. We work hard and to keep our club afloat, to keep the kids out there, and we would, like I said, we would be nothing without all of our volunteers.
Well, hopefully, if 50 or 100 people see this podcast right now and are interested,
absolutely,
we'll find a home for you.
And that's a wonderful thing. I think it's also important to bring this up too. We've talked about the fact that it's men and women and kids. That there's a certain part of your club that is important to you in your mission statement. That it's exclusive to everybody.
Yes.
And I think that's important to spread as well too.
So I took, about maybe a year and a half ago, I took a coaching course through like a mix, I'm blanking on the name right now, but I took a mixed ability coaching program, and the basis of that is we will make it work for you. Like, rugby is supposed to fit for everybody. Like, whatever that you need, like, we're making this fit for you. Like, you're not supposed to fit into rugby, and if you don't fit, you don't fit. It's like, we can find a way to adapt this, like, whatever your needs may be. Like, there's a way to make this work. There is wheelchair rugby. There's Paralympics. There's Special Olympics, but not just that. The biggest thing teaching kids is respect. Like, if someone's a little different, like, okay, they're deaf, like, we need to talk to them or talk to their parent. Like, what's the best way that I can make this work for your kid? Is there a way that I can help them get around this barrier? We also provide a free cleat program in our club. Like, living in Hamilton, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that don't have those means to put their kids into organized programming.
It's expensive.
It is expensive. Rugby, luckily, is one of those ones where, again, all you need is cleats when you're young. We'll provide the uniform, get it back at the end of the year, and then a mouth guard. Cleats, again, sometimes out of reach for some people. The kids go through them so fast, and they're still in perfect condition. We just put a shelf up in our shed, take a pair if you need a pair, you grow out of them, you have a pair. And then luckily, we have the best sponsors with Brian and Billiana, Hamilton Realtors, and they very kindly, 2 years in a row now, have pitched and made it so that all kids under 18 have free training with us over the winter.
Wow.
Huge deal. We have like 100 kids out just learning the game, getting some physical activity, having community, and then sometimes their parents stay after, learn, join. Like, it really is the best gift to be able to give someone is organized sport.
One last question to you. And again, you talk about being a player and now being a coach and giving back. I'm going to ask you for one memory.
Oh, geez.
One memory.
I don't have a concussion. I'm just thinking. I think the biggest memory for me is just coming in as a young 16-year-old with no experience other than being just like a general multi-sport athlete. And these grown 20 to 30, sometimes 40-year-old women being like, hey, you need somewhere to be? Come hang out with us. Or like, do you want to learn something? Do you need a ride somewhere? Like, just being welcomed into a place where I didn't know that would be the right place for me, despite the family history. The first memory is the best one. Like, I found a home immediately and I never left.
Amy, thanks for joining us.
No
That's
problem
awesome.
at all.
That's outstanding, and keep it up with the flags. I want to go check it out.
It's the best. We'll find a place for you, absolutely.
Right on. Can you find a place for me?
We'll find a place for you. Absolutely will. There's a place for everyone at rugby.
Let's bring in Sophie. Amy, thank you so much.
No problem at all. Go.
Let's bring in Sophia Rex, and it's again a wonderful example of someone right now that is in the midst of playing right now, a junior player, but apparently you've got some skills that you're getting called up to the senior squad every once in a while. Thanks for joining us here on the Sportsline
Thanks so much for
Podcast.
having us. I'm excited.
This is a lot of fun for me because I get to see, a sport that really I know a little bit about, but not a lot about. And you're teaching me so much, and I know a lot of people that are watching this podcast are learning about this local club that are doing so well. Talk to me about your beginnings of wanting to play rugby.
Yeah, for sure. So, honestly, my story is very similar to Amy's. Since I was like 3, I've loved contact sports. Even if it wasn't a contact sport, I'd make it a contact sport.
Do you have a brother in me, or?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
So yeah, when I was like 4 years old playing soccer, I'd make it a contact sport. And so this year I started wrestling at my high school, and the wrestling to rugby pipeline is a very real thing. And my friend was like, "Oh, you love wrestling, you should try out rugby." I was like, you know what, I've always wanted to. So, she introduced me to the Hornets, and yeah, I've absolutely loved it. So I'm 16, but I play for the U18 team for the girls, and then I also play for the women's team, and it has been the most welcoming community ever, and I've never been afraid to ask questions or to not know something because somebody there will have an answer. And they never make you feel like stupid for not knowing how to play the game, and it's just been amazing to be a part of.
Prez, how good is she?
She's pretty good, yeah. One of the tools that we're trying to do to keep everyone playing rugby as much as possible is promoting a lot of our juniors up into the senior program. So we have, I believe, 2 on the women's team. We have 3 or 4 in the men's team that are U18 age group. We don't have enough to run a full U18 program, so we thought rather than just coming to practice, pay our dues, run around on Tuesday and Thursday, let's get you some game time. So, and again, all the athletes have been, including Sophia here, have been fantastic. They've been great sports. They are picking up the game at remarkable speed, and it seems like they've been playing forever. It seems like they've been playing for 20 years, and they're 16 and 17. So yeah, as a president watching from the top down, it's been fantastic to watch the kids thrive, including Sophia here. They've been doing great.
All right, Sophia. So when you're playing with the seniors, what's that like? I mean, that's the step up.
Yep. It sure is.
Because I'm sure, especially when you're playing the opponents, do they look at you as the junior, or let's get after her, or how's that? Or are you going, I'm going to get you?
I have a very go-get-'em attitude, so I've never really looked at it as, oh, I'm small, like, what am I going to do? I've always looked at it as this is another obstacle, and nothing's going to stand in my way. So I've always seen it as like I'm going to go get it. And also, a lot of people don't think I'm 16. A lot of people think I'm older. So I've never necessarily seen it as like me having a target on my back or whatever. But yeah, I love it. I love challenges, and to me, it's just like if I outdo somebody, it's so much more rewarding to me because I'm playing up, it's just cool.
Well, it's an honor, really, I would think. I mean, obviously, if no one that can't play, or at least your leadership, if they didn't think you could do it, they wouldn't put you in that position. So that's a credit to you. I'm going to ask you a question that may be difficult, and because, I come from a different age group, obviously, well, than you. You're a teenager. You said you're 16 years old, where I talked about the fact that there's stigmas. There's stigmas. And I'm presuming that as a teenager right now, that your age group, your generation, that those stigmas that were in my generation aren't so much in your generation anymore, that anyone, any sex, any abilities, that they can play this sport. And that may be something that maybe Amy had to deal with, you didn't have to deal with. Is that true?
So playing sports when I was younger, there were a lot of stigmas. Like I used to play basketball and soccer, and as a woman, I was seen almost, not by coaches necessarily, but by from peers, I was seen as well, maybe don't pass her the ball, but that is something I've never noticed in rugby. The instant I came to the free training sessions as paired up with a guy, they're going to tackle me. It doesn't matter because we're both there and we're both trying to get better. And that is what I've loved so much, is seeing the stigmas in other sports and then coming to rugby and being like, wow, I can play with the guys and they're not going to look at me as weaker or as less than them, which I have absolutely loved.
And again, whether it's 7s or 11s, this sport at the women's level is growing, especially in this country.
Yes.
And that's good. Are you looking up? Do you want to maybe play with the Nationals one day?
Hey, that would be amazing. I think I definitely want to play post-secondary. It would be great to have a high school team. I kind of started a rugby club at my school. I go to Bishop Tonus Secondary School.
Oh, you started a club?
Yeah.
Entrepreneur!
I started a club because I think rugby is a great sport, and I think it's such a confidence booster in young women, and I think more young women should see what a beautiful sport it is. And so I introduced it to a teacher up at my school, and me and my best friend started a little rugby club together where we taught some other girls the basics, and I thought that was amazing.
So this is Bishop Tonus. Any chance of it spreading to some other high schools?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I talk about rugby a lot. It's kind of become my new personality trait. So I hope it does. I hope it does spread to many schools, and then we can have competitive seasons. We can have tournaments where it's people growing and learning about rugby.
And I think, and I say this freely, I see this because I think men sometimes struggle with helping each other. Whereas because I've coached women's soccer for many years at some point in my life, and I always thought women are better with each other. They work better amongst each other. So even from your perspective, playing the sport of rugby, it's got to be wonderful for you to see PWHL, WNBA team coming to Toronto real soon.
Yes.
It's got to be a pleasure for you to, I mean, women's sports. I've said this to anyone that would listen. If I win a lotto, right, $26 million, I win. I would slap a lot of money on women's sports because I think it's on the verge of a major explosion. And I mean that from all angles, I mean it on TV, ticket sales, merchandise. It's got to be a fun time for you.
Yeah. Women's sports are amazing, and I love that people are starting to realize that. For so many years, I think women's sports have been seen as inferior to men's, and I love how people like Caitlin Clark, I love how she brought the WNBA scene. Like, I love how people are watching that. And it's so inspiring to see as a young woman. It's so cool to see women's sports finally getting the recognition that they deserve. And I think it's amazing.
And she's absorbing some contact for the sport as well, too. Because the rivalries within the WNBA right now, but it's interesting, I think, right? It's fun. And like ESPN certainly love to blow it up as well, too, with tons of conversation as well, too. So, okay, that's good. I mean, so you and your friends, you're kind of guiding the sport, getting it to the next level as well, too. Talked about the Olympic team and what you're doing right now within the club, and this is something we talked about earlier that I'd get like your perspective on, is the fact that the club is not just a club, it's a family, and that's an important part maybe for you in terms of team building.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love my rugby family. It's so cool. Coming in, like this being my first year playing rugby, I was so unsure at the beginning. I was like, oh, I hope they don't look at me differently. I hope they don't treat me differently. But it has never once been like that. From offering rides to offering like support and offering advice, it has been so cool to kind of build a family outside my family. And like my brothers, my younger siblings, they do rugby as well. So it's cool to see how they're building friendships and how it is going to be like just a generational thing of like my Hornet family, you know? And I love it.
Sophia Rex, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm going to clean up with the president here. A couple of things. Thanks for joining us and continue success. And hey, let's get that high school thing going. If you get some results or whatever, hey, send them to me and we'll talk about it on CHCH News. Let's do it, all right?
Thank you so much.
All right. You've got some wonderful people representing your club, and the future looks bright.
It absolutely does. We have amazing people at our club. Amy and Sophia are shining examples of the members we have at our club, and it grows from there. We have a lot of amazing members, a lot of amazing young members. Our kids, and I mean kids from the U10s, U12s, all the way up to our kids playing up with the seniors this year. The club, the future looks bright. The club is, I think, is going to be in a good spot in the next 5 or 10 years. I think we're going to be well taken care of. Hopefully, I can retire by then. Maybe,
but none of these things and many of these sports, especially at this level, don't go off without the likes of the community joining in with the likes of sponsorship as well too. And there's some opportunities to invest in the club, is there not?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking to bring on new sponsors, and one of the things that we always talk to our sponsors about, and we also brought on a new sponsor, Dane Bennison, a mortgage agent, to help out with those indoor sessions at Wentworth Arenas over this past winter. But yeah, we're always looking for sponsors. What we always tell them is we don't have a set package. We don't have a gold plan, a bronze plan, anything like that. We offer our open arms, open support. If you give us $1, if you give us $10,000, you are part of the Hornets family. You're part of the Hornets club. We're going to have our amazing team pump you on social media. We're going to send people to your establishment if that's the case, and you're part of it. You're part of the club. You're in. You're one of us. So and you know, as we grow and as we expand, you know, maybe we will formalize that structure a little bit. But right now, again, we're a club, we're a family, and you're part of it. You invest in us, you help us grow, and we're gonna help you grow as well.
Invest being the key word, and you guys invest in the community as well too. That's obvious as well. You guys like to give back with the different types of programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Most recently we were at the Shoppers Drug Run for Women. We had a couple of our senior women running. We had a couple of our junior girls running. A couple of us old fogies running in there, walking down. My partner and I were walking with our 7-month-old at the back of the track there, cheering everyone on. But yeah, we set up a booth. We donated, and yeah, again, you know, sport at the grassroots level can't go on without community, can't go on without volunteers. So we find it's crucial to give back as wherever we can.
Will, where can we contact you in the club? I'll put up a board and we'll show some information where we can contact you and the people that are certainly maybe are turned on by this podcast and said, I got to be involved. I want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all over majority of the socials. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, just Hamilton Hornets Rugby Club, hamiltonrugby.ca or .com, hamiltonrugby.com is our website. There's all the different contact pages. My email's on there. I'm more than willing to chat at any point or direct whomever to the correct people to bring them into our club. And like I say, there's a spot for everyone. If you're unsure if you'll fit in at our club, I guarantee you're wrong. So send us a message. We'll find a place for you, and we're more than happy to have you.
Well, with a club that's been going for 70 years, there's been many people well before you that have carried it over, and here you are representing the club, the Hamilton Hornets, doing a wonderful job in the community, getting to play the sport that you love. It's getting out there. The message is getting out there. Hopefully we've done our little part here in just this conversation. So thank you so much. Thanks for bringing the team in as well too. Wish you all kinds of success.
I thank you very much for that, and thank you so much for having us on here. Again, it's a lot of word of mouth, so this is huge, and we hope that your audience enjoyed our little stories and tales of lunatics running around without equipment on a rugby field, and we hope to see them out. So thank you very much, Bubba.
You got to get us a jersey to get up here. It can't be just a tie cat.
We'll get you one, absolutely. We will represent, no problem at all.
You're right on. Thanks again, partner.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day, and as you've just seen and heard, we love talking to people that love sports, especially on a local basis. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline Podcast want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, we appreciate your comments. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.